I am joined with Radheya Jegatheva of Painting by Numbers and The Quiet, which have both been nominated as finalists in our animation category at Buntingford Shorts 2021. How are you, Radheya?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, really, really good. Thank you. So, for those that don't know your work and don't know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself and a little bit about how you got into animation and filmmaking in the first place?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Radheya Jegatheva. I'm 21 years old. I just graduated from Curtin University, where I did a double degree of screen arts and marketing. The ceremony was actually just last Saturday, so very recent. But yeah, I've always loved film and animation for as long as I can remember. It always like captivated and fascinated me. But yeah, when I was about, I'd say 11, 12 years old, I started getting interested in film, but especially the VFX and the, I guess, yeah, the post-production side of things. I was really interested in, I guess, the movie magic. I wanted to kind of ruin it and to really figure out how they were actually able to show us the impossible, which is when I started to, try and figure out how to learn certain like programs. I'd watch like VFX breakdowns in my spare time, just trying to like, gain those skills and like basically, yeah, start to learn programs. And I'd always loved writing and like storytelling. So once I had a grasp of how to actually create like visuals, I was able to project all of my written ideas into this visual format, and it kind of all naturally fell together as film and animation. And so yeah, I've just been creating and making films ever since.
Awesome. Was there any like particular VFX bits in films, or is there any particular directors that you find particularly inspiring that sort of led you down this path at age 11, 12?
I At that time I was obsessed with this TV show called Primeval. I'm not sure. Are you, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, yeah, I was just, like, I was that dinosaur kid. And I remember there was this like spin-off that they made in the US, but basically at that time they'd released like these green screen packages of some of their like CG dinosaurs, so you can download and like use. So I was like so ecstatic. I remember I'd get my dad's MacBook Air and use the webcam and like film, like run around the house filming on it, and then I would like put on an iMovie or just like these crappy green screen effects, and it was terrible, but it was just kind of like my intro into that kind of world of filmmaking. But yeah, as for directors, I I wouldn't say like I guess a particular one springs to mind. I think definitely in terms of films and like TV shows, like I love you know movies like Gravity, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like I've always loved space, and so I think that definitely fed into my love for kind of wanting to create that, especially seeing it translates so beautifully onto screen. But even like TV shows like Black Mirror, like things that really make it kind of pull you on this like emotional twisted kind of journey.
Mm.
But also I guess even within the film, but also behind the camera, like directors like James Wan, it's kind of, you hear less about kind of people of color who really made it in the industry, especially behind the camera. And so like he's also like a Malaysian filmmaker who lived in Perth, and then he went over east, and then he's made in the industry. And so I guess that was also really inspiring
Mm.
from that side of things. But I also really admire his directing style and his short films. I'm a big horror fan, so
Wow.
yeah, I think there's a lot of different kind of sources of inspiration. Yeah.
Awesome. And obviously, it's been a bit of a whirlwind year for you in terms of The Quiet, especially, but now Painting by Numbers as well. Um, to name a few, a Oscar long list, a BFI Future Film Awards. How obviously the reception has been incredible, but how is it for you to see that your work's gone from obviously you at home making it um, to the worldwide screen?
Oh, it's just incredible. Like I when I started my filmmaking journey, I never would have thought like anything like this would ever be possible. And this really, it really means a lot to know that people I appreciate your work and really respond well to it. So that just means the world to me. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to have kind of been given these opportunities to, the Oscar long list is something that I've like always like dreamed of. And so I think it definitely keeps like inspiring me to kind of keep pushing those boundaries and to keep working and keep creating. But yeah, it's really yeah, just great to, I guess, see how something that you make in like your bedroom on your laptop can go so far. And I hope that also inspires others to kind of do the same. Like, I honestly don't think you need to go to film school, or you need to you do that in order to make films and follow films. When I started making film in high school, we didn't have like a media subject, so I kind of had to turn to watching online tutorials, or just kind of really kind of learning, basically taking advantage of what's available to you and those resources. And yeah, sorry, I'm not sure if I answered the question, but yeah,
that's all right. That sounds good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're completely self-taught. What program is it that you use to make your animations?
So my main program, like my baby, is Adobe After Effects. That's kind of what I've been just using to do my compositing and animating, and then also kind of getting plugins in as well. Like, I remember stumbling across this site called Video Copilot, and they had just like the coolest tutorials. And I remember when I was younger, I was like, oh, this is sick, and I started to kind of learn through them, and just on YouTube, I'd be watching all sorts of things. But yeah, basically Adobe After Effects, and then a lot of other like programs from the Adobe suite, like Photoshop with Wacom tablet, Adobe Animate, or Procreate, and then getting it and editing it within Final Cut Pro or like Premiere. Yeah, but a lot of Adobe.
Go Adobe, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Adobe
So let's have a little think about the two films that have obviously been selected as finalists this year. Let's start off with The Quiet. Would you like to introduce a little bit about what it's about, and then also kind of the inspirations behind it?
Yeah, so kind of, I guess, a log line for The Quiet is it's about an astronaut who kind of ponders on the quietude of space, and he starts to reminisce about his brother and his experiences, and we follow him as he basically comes across some startling self-realizations. But yeah, it's a film set in space. I've had to sum it up in 3 words: about space, silence, and siblings. But basically, it's very much about silence and how that translates into isolation, but also escapism and, I guess, the imprisonment of the psyche, and domestic and cosmic terror, and trying to interweave those. And yeah, I guess I was really interested in trying to tell a human story set on Earth through celestial imagery. And there's no sound in space, so being able to take sounds that we might consider from like our everyday lives, and then kind of weave that together into this narrative.
And I think that's really effective, especially with things like the record player using one of the planets, and the fried eggs. I think they're particular ones that stand out from when we talked about this as a committee.
Thank you.
No worries. You mentioned obviously about the loneliest aspect, and obviously the isolation, which is quite relevant now, but this film wasn't made during isolation, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was made, a lot of that I made when I went on exchange in China. So that was like the first half of 2019. And it's interesting just because when I was making this film was whenever I had free time in my dorm room. Usually there's 3 people to a dorm, but they just had like me to this one dorm, and so I was just working on this laptop, and it did feel very like isolated and lonely at times. And it's, I guess, to try to, I guess, channel that through, and then I guess into the character and into the film, those themes of isolation and loneliness. But of course I guess goes beyond that, not in terms of like different contexts. I was really interested in exploring how a character's attitude towards like silence and in turn loneliness might change at different points throughout their life. So, even being like having a brother, for example, during my childhood, like I couldn't imagine what it would be like without him. And so that, all these different, I guess, experiences of like loneliness kind of came into this film. But yeah, it was very interesting that like kind of after The Quiet, that all, I guess, lockdown and isolation and then everything kind of came to be. So I hope I didn't like
didn't jinx
it. Yeah.
But I think for people that have started obviously watching it last year and this year, it is in some respects more poignant because of that.
Yeah, that's, I guess, yeah, that's a good point, especially because a lot of the film festivals have gone on like online, or have had to. And I guess watching the film online, I guess, yeah, it definitely would reflect those themes, unintentionally or intentionally. Maybe I'm psychic.
Yeah, who
Um,
knows?
but yeah, uh, yeah, but yeah, I really wanted to kind of, yeah, just give like this very more of an experimental depiction of loneliness and what that means. Yeah, what that means to a character.
Mm. And
Yeah.
the film is narrated by your dad. Uh,
Yes, it
what
is.
is it? What's it been like working as a father and son duo on this one?
Yeah, well, uh, in a previous film called Irony, my dad narrated that as well, and so I was directing him, and it actually felt really good in terms of being able to work with someone, yeah, like you've known your whole life. I felt like I didn't really have to like restrain myself in terms of directing, I guess. Like
Yeah.
it was a lot easier and more expressive when I was kind of in recording in the booth with him. So that part of it was really good. Initially though, when I started using his voice for my films, I actually was like using it as like a placeholder, as a temp kind of track, so I could like structure my animation. And then I was like, yeah, we'll get the real voice in later. But then I saw kind of how well it kind of worked and how the sinister aspects of it um, helped the story. That's when I was like, okay, let's like re-record this for real. And then again in the quiet, I think based on like a lot of like audience reception and feedback, like so many people loved his voice, and it's a voice that I've like heard all my life. So I guess I'm kind of maybe used to it too much. But yeah, so I was really intent on kind of going into this film with him, and it was like going to be more like a, I guess, a creative back and forth,
Mm.
um, since we'd already kind of worked together in some sense.
So were there a lot of ideas that you sort of bounced off each other on to obviously make it how it is?
Yes, yeah, definitely. It was, yeah, it was really great because my dad, he doesn't have a film or acting background. He does management at a university, but in his childhood he was really interested in theater, and he did some acting, and
Mm.
I think he won a couple like performances for some like awards for some performances he did back when he was in uni. But then when kind of real life came, he kind of put that to the side. So it was really great for him to kind of
Mm.
reach back into that creative side of him. And yeah, it was a lot of like bouncing ideas off each other, and yeah, very much an evolutionary process in terms of how the film went. It I definitely did not have a solid idea of what it was going to be when I started the animation, and then so many ideas came to me during that process, and yeah, kind of all the way through until the very end. So.
Nice. And the film also has an original soundtrack. Um, how did that come about?
Yeah, so when I made my first film Journey in high school, I like I basically came to across the issue of like music, and I was like, okay, well, I can't use copyrighted soundtracks because that's copyrighted, and then it's not really mine. I can't really use it or go anywhere with it. I considered like hiring a composer, but then I was a broke high school student who didn't have any money, so I was like, hey, that's out the window. So I decided that I'd try and tackle like the music myself. So I use this program called Logic Pro X. I didn't have a keyboard, so I played notes on my laptop keyboard, and it took a bit of getting used to, but that's kind of how I started making soundtracks to my films. It's all like kind of digitally using these instruments within these programs, and I fell in love with it for my first film, and then I just kept repeating that process all the way through to The Quiet, and also Painting by Numbers. It's it's just a really interesting other flip side of the creative process, and I think it definitely helps in terms of getting with my creative vision. Like I know exactly what I want, what sound I want, what emotions I'm trying to evoke within the viewer. So yeah, it was, even though it was definitely challenging, and it's always challenging trying to figure out the sound that I want with each new film and what's kind of suitable or appropriate. It's always like a really great creative creative challenge, and I really enjoy doing it.
Definitely. And I think music is one of those things that if you took the music away from the film, it then is completely different to the audience.
Oh, for sure.
So trying to
So
tackle that, as you said, is really challenging.
yeah, it's like I just think music, it's so powerful, and like the entire like scenes can obviously change like so much just based on the music alone. I think definitely sound sometimes I feel is quite overlooked because but it really is like kind of 50% of the film in terms of what the viewer receives. It's half visual, half audio. So yeah, super important to consider.
But then silence is the most beautiful sound, as
It
the
is.
film
It's
says.
also the most terrifying.
So there you are. There's a striking balance there in itself.
Yes,
Awesome.
indeed.
Thinking now then a little bit about your newer film,
Yeah.
Painting by Numbers. Completely different in style again. So a bit like The Quiet, do you want to introduce what Painting by Numbers is about for the audience?
Yeah. So Painting by Numbers is a brief exploration of humanity and the legacy of humanity in relation to Earth and the environment. But it's essentially weaving together. It's told. It's about environmentalism told through 7 of the most famous paintings in the world, each in relation to one of the 7 deadly sins. So I with this film, I basically at a film festival called Port Shorts Film Festival in Queensland, I met with this producer called Matt Hearn. He's amazing, and he approached me because he was interested in a collaboration. And so there was a TEDx Sydney event happening last year, and it was before COVID, so it was all supposed to be in person, and then it got all like delayed and like rescheduled and everything. But he said, okay, so basically like you have free reign, like make a short film about like whatever you kind of really want. And the climate crisis is something that I'd really been meaning to tackle in some sort of creative work, and I thought that this was a kind of perfect opportunity to do so. But I wanted to put my own creative spin and my own creative twist on it, and come up with something that would hopefully kind of get people talking and the conversation going. So I decided to take 3 very seemingly unrelated things, like the climate crisis, like 7 classical paintings, and then the 7 deadly sins, and then try and see if I can basically merge them together to create meaning and to create this short film. And it was really also like also challenging in some respects in terms of trying to create those connections and trying to see what would work, but also doing that research into the bigger picture of things. It was funny because I thought they were like so completely unrelated, and then when I was playing Civilization 6 like recently, and I saw a quote in the game, and it was from this guy called Edward O. Wilson, and it said, "Destroying rainforests for economic gain is like burning a Renaissance painting to cook a meal." And I thought that was interesting because like
and that's quite literally what you've done in some respects.
Yeah, exactly. And then in hindsight, I was like, maybe I should like, I was considering like maybe should I put that quote at the beginning of the film or something, because I thought it was quite relevant. But that's Painting by Numbers. It was really, I think it definitely in terms of style, challenging to, I guess, replicate those paintings digitally. It was good that obviously I had the references of the originals there, but then because there are 2 versions of each painting, trying to, I guess, replicate that style with a modernized twist, that definitely took some time. But
why did you think now was the kind of time to touch on the environmental crisis and obviously put that statement out about, obviously, guys, we need to sort this? But
well, basically I saw a lot of articles about how basically the damage that we're doing to the environment within like the matter of a few years will be irreversible, and that's really alarming. And also with the doomsday clock, the scientists and researchers are basically screaming to us like we have to do something, otherwise like we're going to cause irreversible destruction to our planet. And so I think it has been relevant for many years now. And so I think it was probably more of a matter of, in terms of me making this film, like, okay, I had this opportunity to create this film. Now is, I mean, it gets more relevant by the second. And so I just thought, now would be, I guess the perfect time in a terrible way to kind of showcase that. Yeah.
Obviously, whilst so there's references obviously to the Australian bushfires of last year within the film, and all of these are obviously quite contemporary issues. So obviously making it while it's still in the news, and it's not always fully represented in the news worldwide, at least.
Yeah,
is
definitely.
that something that you hope to change with Painting by Numbers?
I hope so. I think, like, realistically, I'm not sure exactly how much change I will be able to make with this short film, and I really hope that I am able to at least like spur this conversation and to kind of get people, especially. I think I was also thinking in terms of the reach of some of my previous films. Like, I know that they have reached a lot of people, and so hopefully I'll be able to kind of reach those audiences and maybe change their minds, or maybe change their ways of thinking or living. Australian bushfires, of course, was a huge influence, and it's not something that's, if we kind of keep going the way that we are, that's going to kind of go away. It's going to start, like, every year there are going to be bushfires. There was one very recently over here in Perth, and so yeah, it's alarming, and it's something that I really felt that I should get out there. I know it's been that this topic has been covered like so much, of course, and it needs to be. And I think it should be covered more. But yeah, just really wanted to express it creatively and in an experimental form.
And the sort of final image we see is obviously of the Earth with the phrase 100 seconds to midnight. What does that mean specifically to you within the film? Do you see that as like a countdown to the end, or how would you describe that?
I think in the film it does serve itself as a countdown to the end in terms of what what scientists are saying and what the Earth state is at the moment. But I think, to me, hopefully it serves more as a warning or as a precautionary thing, since we do still have time to reverse I guess the effects of climate change. But it definitely goes bigger than that. And I mean, there is so much that we can do as people to reduce our environmental footprint, but a lot of it comes down to corporations. I think there is a misconception that it's like so much of it is coming from like, oh, like if I use this plastic straw, like of course, like that's not good for the environment. But a lot of it is corporations and how much they use, like the amount of environmental damage that some corporations are doing on like a worldwide scale is insane when you look at the numbers. And yeah, I think I just really hope that with my film, I would just want people to kind of do more research about it, to really look into it. I know it covers like a whole broad range of different things, and it's kind of hard to kind of go in depth into all of them in like a 4-minute film, but kind of, yeah, I guess to kind of hopefully be a spark for some people.
And I think it from our perspective, I can only really go on because it's the only audience feedback we know specifically, I suppose. But people have started to think about it, definitely. And I remember discussing a little bit about obviously climate change and obviously the changes that are going to hopefully be made in the next few years. So I think it's definitely going to start hitting its target, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Go on, go for it.
No. It was really nothing.
So when you were obviously making this, this was off a little bit last year, was it, when you made this?
Yes, it was last year. Yeah.
Did you feel like an additional pressure based on the back of The Quiet and how that was so well received when you were making this? Did that sort of bear in your mind at all?
Partly. I think the producer who contacted me, Matt Hearn, at that film festival, when he approached me about this film, he initially did say that he kind of wanted something that was in a similar vein to one of my previous films called Irony, which was a social commentary as well. And so I think in that sense, I did kind of feel pressured to kind of make something that lived up to his expectations from that film. I think with The Quiet, I think I felt less pressure with that because they definitely felt like two very separate films and different entities. But at the same time, that of course, when it has been so well received, I'm always like, there is always that, that pressure of thinking like, oh, can I make something that's better than that? And I'm so, I can't ever look at my film objectively because I'm so close to it. And so I'm throughout the entire process, I'm always thinking like, is this any good? Like, am I just like wasting my time here? Or, but then I think about, the message I'm trying to say or the people I'm trying to connect to. And then that always kind of, no matter what kind of nagging thoughts kind of get into you, you just kind of have to push through it and just, keep finishing, trying to work hard to kind of finish your creative vision.
And is there anybody that you sort of show works in progress to try and obviously like delve out, is this idea worth considering? Because obviously these films do take a long time to make.
I think definitely my family members, I'd show my dad, my mom, my brother. When I started out, I'd always show my brother. He's like a couple years younger than me, but I always like show him, like ask him, oh, what do you think of this? I guess it's hard when I show him like just a single shot, but that's like part of an actual final film. But no, he was always like, I guess, helpful and giving feedback, and I'd kind of always put him in like the special thanks. And his voice actually appeared in The Quiet. There's a sequence towards the end where the character's reminiscing about his childhood memories, and there's there's giggling and laughter, and that's actually taken from home videos of my brother and I that I found. And it was cool to kind of be able to put that in, so it kind of became a real family affair. But yeah, I think definitely my family members would be people I would kind of like just show and just kind of ask for their feedback and their approval. And definitely with this film, Matt Hearn, one of the producers, I was definitely, of course, like I was showing him and giving feedback with him. I'm also really lucky to be able to work with Steve Boddy. He's a composer that I met at that same film festival. And so we kind of had a collaboration process with the soundtrack on this film. And that was really great because he had so much expertise and so much knowledge. And it was great to kind of finally be able to, work with someone and to have that like a shared kind of composing process with him. So then then there was also, I guess, showing feedback with him. But I guess going into the future, I think definitely depending on who I'm working with, I'll definitely have to expand that kind of circle of feedback and reflection.
Yeah, but I suppose for now, obviously, as you're growing, family, obviously they can be incredibly critical, but they can also be give you your best comments sometimes, as many people would argue. Then thinking towards the future then, is there anything that you're working on at the moment that you can share a little bit of?
Yeah. So a year ago, I was approached by a writer, Claire Toonin, and a producer, Hannah No. They had this project. It was called Bird Drone, and it's about a bird who falls in love with a drone. It's about unrequited love, and I fell in love with the script, and we decided to apply for a Screen West grant. So Screen West is like a funding body over here in Western Australia, and we managed to secure some funding for it, which was amazing. So we have this year to create this short film, and so this will be the first time that I'll be creating like a project, firstly a project that's funded by a company, but also to be working collaboratively with others. We're going to talking like production companies who are going to like carry out the animation style that I'm envisioning, because it's going to be a bit more complicated. It's almost like Pixar meets like Studio Ghibli, that kind of vibe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my main project for the year. And I'm like so excited. Just very much in like the pre-production, the early stages of it. And I do have like some other, like, I guess, short form ideas, but they're very much like at the conceptual stage. I still have to kind of flesh them out. But yeah, I'm always gonna keep creating and keep working at it.
Would you say you're nervous to collaborate? Because I know obviously the previous films that you've mentioned are obviously you and a little bit of family input. Is it nerve-wracking to sort of put yourself out there to collaborate?
Yeah, I think it it definitely was, and it is. Yeah, I am a bit nervous about how it is going to go because I've never done this kind of thing before. But I am also really excited looking into it. Like we had a script development process with this amazing director Bradley Slabe. So he was like a script supervisor, and I was kind of even nervous going into those. Like sometimes like Zoom meetings just terrify me, or even like phone calls. It's embarrassing. But they turned out so well, and he was like so helpful, like mentor. And yeah, so I think I just kind of have to go into it knowing that this is all part of the learning experience. And even though like I get nervous about pretty much everything, and then in hindsight I was like, why did you ever feel worried about that? I'm just like, I'm a worrywart. But yeah, definitely, yes, definitely nervous, but also very excited.
Awesome. So then, just to finish up, would you like to let everybody know that's watching this where they can find your work and where they can sort of follow you to see what's happening in the future?
Yeah. So The Quiet is actually available for viewers in the UK on BFI Player. It'll be available until the 28th of February, I believe. So there's an extra week that is going to be on that platform. Painting My Numbers is still doing its film festival run, but so it's not publicly available at the moment, but I will have a website going up, radheya.net. It's still being constructed, so but that'll have like all the information about where to kind of I guess where the films will be playing next in terms of film festivals. And then at the moment, like my Twitter handle is Heya it's Radheya, and on Instagram Radheya_J, where yeah I kind of post updates on my films and how they're going. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you sitting down to talk to us. And
Awesome.
best of
Thank you
luck.
so much.
Best of
Oh,
luck
sorry.
next week.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for talking to me. And yeah, I'm just so honored to be a part of this. And thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.